The mall of illusion had been built upon a single unshakable truth: follow the path and you will rise. The system was fair, the structure was just. The rules ensured that all who worked, climbed and achieved would be rewarded, or so the teacher believed. But something was changing, and though he could not yet name it, the mall no longer felt the same. For a long time, the rules had been clear. The teacher had given them a structured path, one that ensured order, fairness and growth. But slowly, subtly, the inhabitants had begun to alter the rules, not all at once, not in defiance of the system, but in the name of progress. At first the changes were small. New standards arose, standards that no longer came from the teacher, but from the inhabitants themselves. They called them individual standards. And though the teacher had not approved them, he did not reject them. For if the system was built to help them grow, and if they chose new ways to define success, was that not a sign of progress? And so he watched. At first, the new standards seemed harmless. Some believed that those who spoke the loudest deserved to rise the fastest. Others decided that wealth and possessions were the true markers of success. And still others sought power, not through effort, but through influence, reputation and control. But soon, one truth became clear. The shoppers no longer followed the original path, they followed each other. And though the teacher had given them the system, it was no longer his to control. One day, the teacher stood at the great pavilion, watching as a young inhabitant stood before the crowd. This one had followed everything. He had studied the lessons, he had obeyed the system, he had moved forward, never straying, never questioning. And yet, when the time came for him to rise, the shoppers refused to approve him. He's followed the rules, but he's not like us. He's too quiet, too passive. He does not stand out. He lacks what makes someone worthy in today's mall, and with that, he was denied his ascension. The teacher's breath caught in his throat. This was not how it was meant to be. The path had been clear, the rules had been just, but now the system was no longer the law. The shoppers had become the law, and the teacher, who had once shaped their world, no longer recognized it. For the first time, the teacher felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. Had he given them too much freedom? Had he built something that no longer needed him? Or worse, had he built something that had become worse than the nothingness he had tried to save them from? And though the mall still stood, though the shoppers still moved, climbed and sought progress, for the first time, the teacher saw a fracture in its foundation. For the first time, he saw a structure that was no longer held together by truth, but by illusion. And the worst part, they didn't even see it. As the teacher turned away from the pavilion, his gaze fell upon the walls of the mall. Once they had been solid, absolute, unbreakable. Now he wasn't so sure, because for the first time he wondered, what if those who left weren't lost? What if they had simply seen something beyond the illusion? And as he walked away, his mind whispered a question he had never dared to ask before. What if I was wrong?